All right, and welcome back. So today we are going to be going through a couple of different example problems relating to our transformation rotations. We're going to be talking about how to do rotations in the coordinate plane that are 90-degree clockwise, 90-degree counterclockwise, and 180 degrees, all about the origin. And I understand rotations can be a little bit confusing, and that's okay, but hopefully this video provides a little bit of clarity because I know that you can do this. So without further ado, let's begin. So in this example, it asks us to do a rotation of 180 degrees about the origin. So again, when it says about the origin, that means we're going through 0, 0, and that's all the problems that we are going to be seeing at this level is going to be about the origin. So we aren't going to be choosing a random point to rotate around. It's always going to be at 0, 0 or the origin. So let's think of our rule for when we rotate 180 degrees. Our algebraic rule looks like this. Our coordinate point x comma y turns into the opposite value of x comma the opposite value of y. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to identify the coordinate points of each vertex, and then I'm going to take the opposite x and the opposite y and then graph that. So Q is 0 comma negative 1. H is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, negative 3, comma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And J is 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5, comma negative 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the opposite x and the opposite y, and then we're going to graph it. So starting at Q down here, Q is 0 comma negative 1. Well, the opposite of 0 is still 0, and then the opposite of negative 1 is 1. So we're going to be graphing 0 comma 1. So if I show it over here, this was Q, turns into Q prime 0 comma 1. Okay, and we label. We're starting out with H was negative 3 comma negative 5. That turns into, well, the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. The opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. So we graph that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh no, I'm going to run out of room. J was negative 5 comma negative 3. That turns into J prime. The opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. The opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. So 5 comma 3. 5, 1, 2, and 3. It looks like we're overlapping there. But that is how we're going to do it. We want to write out the given coordinate points of each vertex of the shape, and then write the rule and follow the rule. That way it's easier for us to graph it. So hopefully this was helpful for 180 degrees. Now let's talk about, oh no, here we go. Now let's talk about 90-degree rotation, counterclockwise about the origin. Let me make this just a little bit smaller. Okay, so let's think of our rule. So we start out with our coordinate point x, y. That then turns into, and the writing of this can get a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try to talk you through it. So it turns into the opposite value of y, comma, the x value. So let's talk about what I mean by that. Well, L right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the x and the y value. So my x and y just switched. And now I take the opposite value of what was the y. So what was the y was 0, but we can't take an opposite of 0, so it's just 0. So now we have 0, comma 5, 0, comma 5. So this is L prime. Okay, let's look at S right here. So S is 2, comma 2. So S is 2, comma 2. That changes into S prime. Again, we switch the X and the Y, and for this one it's going to be, it's a little bit the same because they're the same number. And we take the opposite of what our Y value was. Well, our Y value was 2, so now it's negative 2. So we graph negative 2, comma 2. So that's S prime. Let's look at B. B is 4, comma 5. All right, so B is 4, comma 5. That's going to change into, again, we switch our X and Y. So we write 5, comma 4. And now we take the opposite of what our Y value was. Our Y value was 5. So now instead of writing positive 5, we're going to write negative 5. That's the opposite. So we graph negative 5, comma 4. And that is our B prime. And that's how we do 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Nice job. Here we go. Now let's talk about 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. Let me give us a little bit more room. So we always start out with our algebraic rule. So we have X, comma Y turns into, just like before, we're going to switch our X and Y location in the coordinate point. But this time we're going to be taking the opposite of what our X value was. So let's show an example with that. Let's talk about F right here. Well, F is negative 1, comma 3. That's going to change into, we call F prime. And we switch the order, so it becomes 3, comma negative 1. But now we take the opposite of what our X value was. Our X value was negative 1. So the opposite of that turns into positive 1. So now we graph 3, comma 1. That's F prime. Cool. Let's go down to B right here. B. So this is negative 5, comma 1. And that's going to turn into B prime. Again, we switch the order around. It was negative 5, comma 1. So now it's going to be 1, comma negative 5. But again, we take the opposite of what our X was. And our X was negative 5. So now it's going to be positive 5. So we graph 1, comma 5. And that's B prime. All right, we have 2 more to do. We have M. M is negative 4, comma negative 2. So now we have M prime. We switch our order, so it's negative 2, comma negative 4. And now we take the opposite of what that X was. It was negative 4, so now it's going to be positive 4. So we now graph negative 2, comma 4. Oh no, it overlapped. That's okay. And last but not least, we have to graph H. H is negative 1, comma negative 2. So H prime, again, we switch the location, negative 2, comma negative 1. and we take the opposite value of what our x was. Our x was -1. The opposite of that is +1. So we have -2, 1. -2, 1. And that's going to be our h prime. And that's how we graph counterclockwise going 90 degrees. Nice job. You can see that it overlaps a little bit, but that's okay. It might get a little bit confusing, so we want to be clean and neat with it whenever possible, but you're doing a great job with this. You're doing a really, really, really good job. So let's talk about if we're not given a graph. So it's rotation 180 degrees about the origin. For me, I actually think these are a little bit easier to understand, because if I don't have a graph, then I have the coordinate points. And if I have a graph, I still have to find the coordinate points, so they kind of do one step for you already. They're giving you the coordinate points, and now we can just apply our rule. Remember, our rule for rotation 180 degrees is our x comma y, our coordinate point, changes into the opposite of x and the opposite of y. And the order and where they are doesn't change. We're just changing the signage of our x and y values. So let's talk about it. So L is currently 1, 3. We apply our rule. L prime is going to be -1, -3. Z is 5, 5. We apply our rule. Z prime is -5, -5. And last but not least, F is 4, 2. F prime is now the opposite, which is -4, -2. And that's it. That's all we do. If they're giving you the coordinate points, then all we need to do is just take the opposite value of it for 180 degrees. If it was counterclockwise or clockwise, both going 90 degrees, we just want to start out by writing your rule. That's the biggest tip that we can always do, is write the rule. You want to write the rule first, that way you can show it and you can see exactly what you're doing. Not having to think oh, what do I have to do here? Just write it out first, that way you can visually see it and then follow it. That's a big, big, big tip for you. It's a cute tip for you. And last but not least, it's asking us to write a rule that describes the transformation. So a lot of students will get this one confused because they don't know what the pre-image is, and then they don't know what the image is. What you want to do is look for your pre-image, and that's going to be the vertices, or the vertices, should say, that does not have the apostrophe. That's saying, hey, this is my original, it's my OG. So the black shape right here, you can tell this does not have any apostrophes with it. So this is our pre-image, which means that this is turning into our image. And you can tell that all of these vertices have that apostrophe to it. So since they have the apostrophe, that means it's going to be our image. That's what happens after we do this transformation, and this happens to be a rotation. So since we're going from our black shape into our blue shape, then how did we do that? How did we go? Did we go clockwise or counterclockwise? Remember a clock. Did I go clockwise to my right, or did I go counterclockwise to my left? Well, I can just take this arrow. Oh no. I can just take the arrow. You can see, oh, I'm going to my right. So since I'm going to my right, I'm going clockwise. So our answer here is 90-degree clockwise. Hopefully this video gave you a little bit of clarity on how to perform rotations in the coordinate plane. You're doing so well with this though. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But other than that, have a great day.